So now we have an amazing fireside chat, which we're going to talk about the topic of AI. So I don't think anyone should leave if we're going to be talking about the topic of AI now, because this is very, very important, very critical. I have a fireside chat, so we're going to spend 20 minutes talking to an incredible entrepreneur, a lady called Charlotte Degot, who is the CEO and co-founder of CO2 AI. Charlotte, welcome. Round of applause. Perfect. Thank you very much, Charlotte, for coming. So that was something, wasn't it? We covered a lot of ground in that last panel to set some context to this. Yeah. The fireside chat is sometimes my favorite part of these panels because it gives us a bit of time to dig deeply. And your story, we've had a few meetings over the past couple of weeks, is incredibly powerful. And of course, you are in the topic du jour, as they say, because you are mixing AI into this whole climate debate. So I'm going to start by just asking you to explain your business and what you do, and then we're going to dig into a couple of other things and have some concrete examples of how you're making that change.
Sure. So hello, everyone. I'm Charlotte Degot. I'm the founder and CEO of CO2 AI. And what we do is help the world's largest organizations on their end-to-end net zero journeys. From measuring their emissions to actually reducing them. We work with companies like Accor, Pernod Ricard, Cisco, General Mills, so very large international organizations who are on a journey to reduce their emissions, but need a lot of things to be put in place to actually achieve that.
Fantastic. And your origin story is very interesting because you were at BCG, right? Tell us how you got into this topic and how you kind of thought it would be good to start your own business or spin out your own business.
So actually, I spent more than 10 years at BCG, the consulting firm, so quite a long time. And I did work with large companies on many strategic topics. And over the last years, I was really working on artificial intelligence and how to use tech to really enable companies to solve their biggest, most strategic issues. And progressively, it appeared that the biggest issues of all, from a strategic perspective, was sustainability. And it was almost natural to start applying AI to the sustainability issues. That's the perfect playground, honestly, to put AI on. Lots of data, lots of issues with the data, a lot of need for transparency, as the great panelist before just explained. So CO2AI was born, helping some BCG clients at the beginning with their issues on data. And ultimately, we realized that it was better to make it a proper, standalone, long-lasting business to be able to serve those companies in the long run.
So amazing. So you then you span it out and set it up as its own business, with BCG still involved yeah.
Yes, it was of course a common decision with BCG, where we all felt that it was the best decision to power boost CO2A and to make sure that it could serve its clients in the right way for the long run, for the next 5, 10, 30 years, in line with their commitments in terms of carbon reduction. BCG is still highly involved. The chairman of BCG is at the board of CO2A, so we are still very close, but we are operating as a 100% focused team on helping our clients on their net zero journey.
And how? So you were right at the beginning of the AI movement before we were talking about it, when you were starting all of this. And how do you keep current? How do you stay up to date, and what's your kind of perspective? Because it's moving so fast. So how does that all work in your world?
So it's very tough. It goes very fast. At some point, I went back to school, actually, to really step up in AI for a while as part of executive education, still working part-time. Now I also rely on my team. I have a great team of experts in artificial intelligence who really follow the trends and who are experts in the new waves like generative AI, etc. That's a space that evolves so fast. fast, but it's also so promising, especially for the topics we are discussing today, where data is at the center of everything. We need to be a lot better than we are on data management and sustainability, and AI is a key enabler to do that faster with less effort and to focus on action rather than just cleaning manually the data, for example.
Yeah. So if we talk a bit about the main problems that you're seeing today that you are solving at CO2 AI, and how, just can you give us a sense of, what a client would come to you with, and how you would help them solve the problem in a more efficient and a more action-oriented way?
So, just to start with, today, 95% of companies' advocacies are not in line with the Paris Agreement. 95%. So if the room was representing the 100% of companies, like half of the front row would probably be in line with the Paris Agreement. So there is a huge wave of effort that needs to be put in place to actually put companies in line with a 1.5 to 2 degrees world. And the first step is to actually measure properly what we're talking about. It's the transparency that the previous panelists were talking about. 10% of companies today, only 10% are measuring comprehensively their emissions. How can you hope to decrease, even to start a reduction pathway if you don't know where your emissions are, where your hotspots are, etc. So that's exactly what we help companies with at CO2 AI. We help them set up a proper measurement, which is solid enough, granular enough, to be able to have good data to rely on. And then we help them with strategic insights and operationalization. It's a software, basically, where you can, like financial data, automate your flows, know where you are at any point in time, and then make decisions and cascade those decisions in your organizations to be able to say to procurement, now we are going to change the way we engage with suppliers, now we are going to change this type of raw materials because we are not in line with the total carbon footprint it brings, etc., etc.
So we talked a bit about investors in the previous panel, and I can see some investors in the room here. How is the investment community reacting? Are you called in by private equity firms to help on due diligence around this, or are you finding that investors are insisting on it? Because there's only 10% of companies who are in line. So, is that an important part of your work?
Investors is clearly a driving force to push companies in the right direction. In our case at CO2 AI, we work with very, very large organizations. I was mentioning a few like Pernod Ricard, Accor, Cisco, Volvo, etc. Those are companies who have, even beyond investors, set goals for themselves, and they know that they need to accelerate on the way they measure data and they act on this data. So I would say investors are very important, and they need to continue the push. But fortunately, the people are more and more realizing that they need to act, and for themselves and for their own competitive advantage and long-lasting future, starting to put things in place that are very ambitious.
And do you, is there a kind of role for that whole, we talk also a little bit about storytelling and the kind of bringing it to life a bit more with some of the customer side of things, or is it more in the bigger company as a sort of B2B play only, or is it coming through to consumers to create that value?
So I would say the ecosystem in a broad sense, so customers, consumers, suppliers, is extremely important. Because even a large company, Nancy was mentioning it about the Scope 3 emissions of Estée Lauder. 95% of emissions are 95% are usually outside the own operations of a business. So it's extremely important to very soon in the journey, very early, engage players around you, suppliers, customers, consumers, to be able to accelerate the decarbonization, and also to be able to show the progress and to communicate on this progress. All this ultimately is for greater transparency and faster progress.
And it's all stakeholders, as you say. It's the internal as well as the external, and also the customers. So I couldn't go through this without asking you about some of the conversations around AI and how dangerous it might be and all of those sorts of things. And we talked about data governance, the ethics of what's going on. How do you navigate that?
So at CO2AI, the way we use the data is pretty ethical, and we do not really face these kind of issues, because to describe a little bit what we do, when you compute a carbon footprint, for example, for a large company, it's extremely complex. You need to gather pretty much data from every system in the organization to be able to reflect all the activities that the company is doing, all the products and services they buy from their suppliers, etc. So that's an amount of data that gets crazy very fast. We work with retailers who have tens of millions of rows of data that they need to refresh each time they want to recompute their carbon footprint. So the way we use AI here is extremely useful and at the same time extremely safe. It's reading the data and matching it with emission factors in an extremely fast way. We reduce by 90% the efforts that are needed by humans to compute a carbon footprint. It used to take months to those companies to compute a carbon footprint. It takes them hours.
So you reduce it by 90%?
Yes.
Which is a 90% reduction is amazing in terms of human engagement.
And it brings more granularity, so ultimately ability to use the data in a better way, because you can really have actionable data.
And who's your client in the organization normally? Is it the sustainability teams, or is it the CEOs, or strategy?
It depends.
Yeah.
And I would say it depends of the maturity stage of the company. When the companies are starting their journey, it's usually the sustainability team, so the CSO and his or her team. And then progressively we expand, and we see more and more procurement CPOs who get involved because they get the mandate of reducing their Scope 3 emissions and to embark their buyers and their suppliers in the journey. And you end up with thousands of people using CO2AI in the organizations. At Volvo, for example, we have thousands of buyers who are using the platform in day-to-day to know what to discuss with their suppliers.
Wow. Yeah. So it's, I can see that's extraordinary. And how many people are you in your organization now in CO2AI?
How many people?
Yeah.
45.
So there are 45 people. I won't ask you what your sales are, but I'm sure they're pretty good. So this is an amazing example of efficiency internally, but also bringing not only the actionable data and the insights, but also great efficiency to your clients. Do you ever think of using the technology for other parts of it? We had a big circularity conversation yesterday and around tracking materials and non-carbon. Do you think about that?
Of course.
Where do you think the next frontier might be?
So for me, all environmental data is going pretty much together. It's important to take the impacts of the different KPIs in a holistic vision, because one improvement on carbon can lead to not so much improvement on water, etc. For us, really, at the moment, the next frontier is also, we were talking about ecosystem, and for us, it's really also about unlocking this ecosystem power. CO2AI is a proud partner of CDP. We work together on building a platform that is called Product Ecosystem that allows customers and suppliers of the same value chain to exchange data in a safe way, in a standard way, so that they can do it once and reshare many times. Estée Lauder, actually, who was also there, is using Product Ecosystem actively. And for me, this is really where there is a huge power of acceleration, making sure that companies are embarking their suppliers, their ecosystem, and suppliers embarking their own suppliers in the journey, and starting to share in a transparent manner, to the point of this session, their data, so that we can finally know where we need to act and reduce.
And do you see companies willing to collaborate, competitive companies, agreeing to share data and work together? I mean, I think there was a pre-competitive was a kind of an expression that was used. So is this something that is the greater good is more important, and therefore we need to scale fast? So the competitiveness goes away a bit.
Honestly, I was surprised because starting the journey with CDP on product ecosystem and on sharing data, I was really worried about that, about companies saying, no, I'm not going to share this data, it's too too important to me to be sharing it broadly. Actually, I'm surprised, but the perspective is more, I'm building a competitive advantage by sharing this with my customer. I'm remaining in the game. Yep. I'm actually strengthening my relationship with my customer. I know what matters to him, so I can make effort as a supplier where it matters. And this is the way the challenge should be seen. Yeah,
fantastic. And do you want to, is there anything you can share with us in terms of an example of a client that's sort of made changes with using CO2 AI and, I don't know, change their business in some way? Can you do that? Can you give me a concrete example?
Yes, sure. Yeah. So we work with, I mentioned a few retailers or consumer goods companies like Cisco, General Mills, Reckitt. All these companies, they are at the stage where first they are using CO2 AI to get much better data, much better granularity on their emissions, typically Scope 3, where they have set targets, but not necessarily always have the right data to be acting on these targets. So that's one where we put real-time automated computation of emissions to be able to help them know where they are and make the CSO accountable for the targets that they have set, right? Because we were in a world where sometimes it felt a bit like good intentions, like we will take action, but we don't know how to measure the results. We don't know where we are, but it's hard, you know, data, etc. Yeah. We're moving to a world where the CSO is as well equipped as the CFO, or almost. There is, of course, still estimations in sustainability data, but they have data that is decision useful, that is granular enough to be able to track progress. And therefore, they become very important. The CSO role is also gaining in importance because they can actually report progress. They can actually be accountable for numbers and KPIs, yeah, which is extremely important. So that's one example. A second example is Volvo, where we work with them on actually making their suppliers' emission lower by embarking their buyers, thousands of people in the journey, and helping them help their own suppliers in decarbonizing.
Amazing. No, that's fantastic. So, I've completely forgotten what I was going to say next, but I'm allowed to do that. We're almost, the red lights are on. So, so what I was going to ask you is, when you look out, and we're kind of, I mean, I think you've created something which is making lives a lot easier for, and you're arming the CSOs really, which is really good, because I've always slightly felt the CSOs don't have that impact in the organization. They're sort of there, and it's like ESG and all that. But to hear Nancy talking, who has huge influence and power, 30% of her time with investors, and you're giving the tools to have those conversations with the investors and with the broader community. So that's extraordinary.
I totally agree with that. We come from a world where the CSO role, and I'm going to be a bit provocative here, was a very weak role. Yep. And that's a big mistake. The CSO role is going to be the most important role, the most strategic role. They are going to be the future CEOs. They are the ones who are thinking the future of the company and building the real competitive advantage for the next 10, 20 years. But you cannot ask a CSO to be strong and to be to embody this kind of power without any numbers, yeah, without any KPIs, without any progress tracking. So it's extremely important, the wave we are in at the moment of finally getting into the data and making this data useful and tracking from this data the progress that is being made is extremely important, and it's actually the right way to give the power to the CSO and make sure that they can have this strategic role that they deserve.
It's fantastic. No, I mean, I think if we take something away from that, from today, you know, one thing, the CSO is the next CEO, and having the data and having the power and the leadership is incredible. So, and it's very encouraging to hear that you're seeing that. So we have 1 minute 31 left. Just wrapping and talking about your journey and how, you know, the pivotal roles. I mean, this is accelerating really fast, and congratulations, it's incredible. But what are a couple of moments that have been important to you along the way?
there are so many moments, and I think there are many more to come. Maybe one was like 4 years ago, I came to ChangeNOW for the first time, and I was in the audience, and I was wondering what I can do, actually, how I can do my part in this change that needs to happen. And today I'm here sharing the journey that I started pretty much at the same time as the first time I came to ChangeNOW. And maybe my message is that we all have a huge power to make things change, and if we start and if we act, there is no reason why it would not ultimately contribute to make the world accelerate.
It's fantastic, and I think Santiago would be delighted to hear that, because the ChangeNOW as a catalyst for that change, and hearing your story and seeing the incredible progress. I don't think this is the last we're going to see of you. I think your business is going to be very, very successful. And I thank you so much, Charlotte, for sharing with us and spending some time with us. And to all of you for sitting through what has been an amazing session. So thank you so much. Well done. OK, we're off.